Pretty excited today. We're on our way to Atmo Zakes' house. Atmo is our local artist here in Centerville who's got a wonderful collection of paintings from her childhood memories in post-war Germany. It's very exciting because this is a story we don't often hear. These are children's stories. Okay, what's unique about her collection is that these present her memories from her childhood, her happy memories, and her ability to find joy where there wasn't a lot of joy.
This is a work of 2 years. I have been at it on and off, and ideas keep coming. I could probably go for another year. And these each represent a memory from my childhood in Berlin, mostly in Berlin. This one is where we were evacuated to in Czechoslovakia, in Bohemia, and it's me kissing my brother, which didn't happen very often in my life because we got estranged and separated very early on and didn't find each other back until about a year ago. Knowing and expressing that we love each other was important for me.
The climax came in November 1943 with the Battle of Berlin. Hundreds of British bombers blasted the city every night. Berlin was the capital and an industrial centre, but it was also a symbol. Berliners themselves were the target.
I remember the sirens for calling us into the bunkers, the sirens when the attacks were over, and how we had to scramble in the dark to get in and out of the bunkers and be hidden completely in dark. That was very strong memories. Even the smell of people in fear in the humidity of the cellars is a very strong memory. Having to walk by myself because my mother was carrying my baby brother in her arms and going down dark stairs and not having anybody to hold on to, that comes back in dreams. So 1 out of 2 houses would be completely destroyed, and the others were barely inhabitable. What we needed to do is to find some kind of normalcy within all of this. I came back to an apartment that was a ground floor apartment, and all that was left of a 3-story house was the ceiling, which was the floor of the 2nd story. That was our roof for a very cold winter, with cardboard in the windows, and the only room that was warm was the kitchen. But I am a small and very alive child, and children want to have fun. And so all around me were very weird and wonderful things to play with. This is the painting and the memory that triggered the whole series, because I sat in that bathtub very often. It was the house in front of ours that was completely destroyed. The whole front was gone, and this is what I remember. And the freedom and the joy to just sit there and watch, because every adult was so busy, they were focused on the ground. Nobody had time to look up in the air. So I wasn't seen, and I could see everybody. I loved that. I remember my mother heating a brick on the coal stove in the kitchen and slipping it into the bed before we went to bed, so that we had one little spot where we could warm our feet, and we would all put our feet to that spot, and it was very cozy. But the worst thing was to get up to do a pee-pee in the middle of the night. And some night it was so cold that in the morning the pee-pee was frozen in the pot. So it wasn't easy, but we had good warm moments, and we survived. That joy of survival is very, very deep. It goes into places in your heart that you can always access afterward. My mother was an animal lover, and she was also a very practical woman. So she got a couple of rabbits, Angora rabbits, which would grow wool. And we would have these rabbits in the basement of our home, of our apartment block. And I would have the job to feed them. And it was a boring job. So one of my pictures is taking my rabbit in a carriage and take it out to pasture. And I would take the rabbit out of the carriage and let it run around. But the rabbit knew how to come when I called it, and I could take it home. That was a real important thing. But could I ever forgive the rabbit to make the wool for the stockings I had to wear in the winter? And they were itchy. We did not wear pants as little girls. And it can get -20 in Berlin. That's cold in a skirt.
In violation of solemn agreements, the Soviet blockaded the western zone of Berlin and left 2 million citizens faced with starvation. Power failed. Industry came to a standstill. Goods piled up. Berlin's arteries had been closed off. Food for the people of Berlin was blocked and allowed to rot.
Every 3 minutes, there's an airplane flying over our heads to land. And so I told the children when I came out of the air corridor over East Germany into free Berlin and over the Tempelhof airfield, I would wiggle the wings of the airplane like this. And then they'd know that that was me. And that had the gum and candy. Well, I wondered how to deliver the chocolate and gum to the children. So I took parachutes, handkerchiefs for parachutes, tied long strings on them, and packaged them with the gum and candy on each parachute. These kids had no gum, no chocolate for months, not enough to eat. And I suddenly realized that not one of 30 kids had put out their hand.
And that's how those little chocolates with little parachutes would come sailing down out of the sky, and we would have chocolate and be in heaven. In Berlin, food rationing continued almost into the 1950s. I had my first orange when I was 12. And I so much didn't know what it was that I bit into the thing with the peel and everything and found it awful and started to spit it out, and everybody laughed. But I didn't know better. My lunch for many years to go to school, I had to have an apron, and it had 2 little pockets. And in one pocket were dried potatoes in little strips, kind of bluish. That was one part. And dessert was dried carrots. They were in the other pocket. And that was lunch. When we got books, they were very precious. And the first job when we started a school year was always to wrap the books into packing paper and to seal the packing paper to protect them. I have a very deep respect for books. I still will not eat and read at the same time. Pippi Longstocking was my childhood hero, and she was a strong girl, an independent girl that could live by herself and be doing all kinds of crazy stuff and always good stuff. And I loved her. And she's in the story holding a horse, but in my dream, she's holding Herbert von Karajan, who was the musical director of the Berlin Philharmonic a long time, and I got free concert from school because I was good in school and loved them. And this is Mozart, who is my childhood hero also, because he did all kinds of music when he was my age. And it was totally admirable. And to today, I love his music because it's joyful. And here is one where I'm working, but I have a talent for turning work into play. This pump of water was our only source for water, because these pumps were installed in the 19th century because there were lots of horses in Berlin and they had to have something to drink. So each of these pumps is connected to its own individual well and not connected to the piping system, which was completely destroyed by the bombs. So those pumps saved our life. And because they saved our life, they're still in use today. And I was so thin that I had to hang on the handle with my whole weight in order for the water to pump. So I would jump up and then my weight would pump down. And this painting here that I call Stealing Cherries, because I am stealing cherries, is one painting that is important because food is important in my life. It was important because of its absence to start with, and now it is there because of its abundance, and I love both ends of that experience. But here, at that age, I was continuously hungry, and foraging for food, we would be little gangs of kids together from the same street in the same neighborhood, and one would watch to see if an adult was observing us, and the others would harvest. And there I'm stealing cherries, and the best cherries in the world are stolen cherries. And I planted 2 trees in my garden here so that when I'm not around, some kids can steal cherries. It's too much fun. Music has always been really important in my life, but there wasn't very much music in Berlin after the bombardings because either the instruments were destroyed or the radios and everything else was plundered by mostly Soviet people who did not have radios and things like that. So the only time we got music was when the organ grinder came and did his weird music. But we had one favorite organ grinder. He had a monkey, and the monkey was there to pick up the pennies. And we didn't have to do it. We could just concentrate on the music. And we would follow him around for hours on end. I wanted to paint it because it was very happy moments I spent in that bathtub. It were moments where I was alone, at peace, with a view of the world that nobody could share, with an absolute feeling of freedom and of joy and of light. That was nourishing to me, that was graved in my memory as a leitmotif, as something worth focusing, as something worth really going for. And from then on, it spilled over into 16 other moments of that kind. And the aim of this moment is to share them with you, to share them, to show that joy is always possible. It's just a question of deciding and of putting the focus where we want. Misery will always be there, and it is somehow our brain's natural focus, because when we, in evolution, we had to grow and we had to face dangers and we had to watch for dangers in order to survive. But we are not in that mode anymore. And we can allow ourselves the luxury of focusing on joy. Let's take it.